This video is going to examine one of the key tasks on the ship: voyage planning by the navigating officer. A good voyage plan with all the information, including information needed in emergencies, is the only basis for a safe voyage. Poor voyage planning may not always result in an accident, but it puts the watch-keeping officer in a weak position if things start to go wrong, and inevitably they will one day. As well as reducing accidents and improving safety, Regulation 34 of SOLAS Chapter 5 requires all ships to have a voyage plan before proceeding to sea. The information it gives frees the watch-keeping officer from spending time on reference books and tables. It will ensure that the officer is fully aware of the master's requirements. The plan must cover the entire voyage, from berth to berth. It must be completed well before departure and must be approved by the master. If the voyage plan is your responsibility, you need to be aware that doing it properly takes time. The first step is to check that all the necessary charts and publications are up to date, and that no change has taken place to the scheduled destination. Next, there must be a discussion with the master to take into account all the commercial requirements of the voyage and of any changes to the scheduled destinations. The master's experience will enable him to suggest a route, pointing out potential hazards.
Okay, second mate, well, on our present voyage plan, we're going to be going from the English Channel to the Azores.
One issue to discuss with the master is weather routing. Even if the ship does not use a weather routing service, it's always worth allowing for the weather. If the shortest route is likely to take you into storms, consider a route going around them. Avoiding storms and storm damage may be cheaper and safer and possibly quicker in the long run.
So we must keep a good watch for hurricane and tropical storm warnings.
Okay, that's going to be a problem on this passage.
The next stage is to collect all the information you will require. This includes suitable charts of as large a scale as needed, the appropriate pilot books, routing charts, and ocean voyage planning manuals. Port information for the start and end of the voyage. Other essentials are tide tables, the list of lights, radio signals information, and weather information. Further items required include any relevant notices to mariners and navigational warnings, as well as the ship's characteristics, including the draft and the maneuvering data. There may be additional information, such as local charts on board. Another resource is personal experience. If you don't know a voyage or a port yourself, it may well be known by one or more of the deck officers from previous ships or voyages. Ask around. Find out what they know. Voyage planning using an electronic chart display and information system, an ECDIS, requires exactly the same information. The process of appraisal, planning, execution and monitoring still applies. Only the methods have changed. Some of the information required may be available in the ECDIS itself if vector charts are being used. But if raster charts are used, then exactly the same reference books will be needed as for paper charts. A voyage plan may include both vector and raster charts. The vector mode of an ECDIS is based on a multi-layered, fully digitized chart. Layers of the display can be adjusted to suit operational or planning requirements. The symbols used are different to those on paper charts. These charts have no edges. They are seamless. The raster mode of operation is based on digitized photographs of standard already existing nautical charts. So they are not seamless. It is a single level basis for navigation. It contains no more and no less information than the paper chart, and so the symbols used will be very familiar. Both raster and vector modes rely on electronic position fixing systems, such as the GPS, to give the ship's position and projected course. With both, it's possible to superimpose other data, such as ARPA or radar. Both systems can be used for voyage planning. Whichever system is used, the first step, as with paper charts, is the preliminary discussion with the master.
4.5 days we would need to achieve 12 knots of speed of advance, which is possible, no problem at all, sir.
Always start with a clear paper chart. Check that the charts have been updated with the latest corrections. A small notebook is essential to record key information about the voyage, such as alter course positions. However it is done, all the other deck officers must be able to understand the plan as well. You must always be consistent. The plan must be clear and the notes easy to read. The objective is for the plan to help other watchkeepers, not to give them an additional problem in deciphering it. The first thing marked on the chart are the no-go areas, land, shoals, wrecks, and so on. Then, mark off all areas where your draft is more than the depth on the chart. The approaches to many ports involve passages where tidal calculations are crucial. Where possible, don't rely on the tide. Let it be a safety bonus. The track is then drawn. In critical areas, the margins of safety should be marked on both sides of the track. How large they should be will depend on the ship's size, the area itself, as well as your personal preference. Perhaps your company or your captain has an established minimum distance from a danger area. The planned track should always be plotted to clear hazards at a safe distance. Voyage planning with a vector chart on ECDIS is more like using a database on a computer. As on a paper chart, it's very easy to align the planned track precisely to any leading light marks or sectors. But it's not just a matter of creating a series of waypoints and lines. Each waypoint needs to contain the necessary information relating to the autopilot systems, such as radius of turn and planned speed and track limits. If you need to use buoys as marks, be sure to use a safe distance off so the ship doesn't run over them. Many ships will use simple distances such as 1 mile. So it's worth using unusual distances off marks to avoid other ships who are using simple distances in their autopilots. On raster charts, the creation of no-go areas is very similar to the process in paper chart voyage planning. Whatever method is being used, always prepare for the unexpected. What would happen if there was an engine failure at the critical moment in the voyage? What information would you want immediately if you were on watch at that moment. When paper charts are being used, all the essential elements of the plan must be listed in the notebook to amplify and support the track on the chart. Items in the notebook should include the safe speed, positions where changes in machinery status are needed, manpower requirements, course alteration positions, points where reports to shore stations are required, minimum depth clearances where critical, and plans for reaching safe water in an emergency. The tidal stream must be marked on the paper chart. If the time of the voyage changes, the track may stay the same, but some data, such as the tidal information, will need to be changed. With electronic voyage planning, the information that would be in the notebook is stored as mariner's notes on the chart itself, or in a pilot data file as part of the voyage plan. Different systems use different ways to achieve this, but the same information is needed. A means of verifying the position of all changes in course must be marked on the chart. When deep sea, GPS is an efficient method of position fixing. Inshore, other means must be used to check the position, at least as a secondary method. At night, lights can provide a useful source of fixes and bearing information. All relevant navigational marks should be indicated on the chart as part of the plan. There is often not the time to look them up while underway. On large-scale charts, wheel-over bearings should be found that are parallel to the new course. That way, even if the ship is to the left or right of the intended track, it will come around onto the correct course. It is important in planning a voyage to specify how the position of the ship should be fixed and how often. Most watchkeeping officers will have developed their own rule of thumb for timings. But this is inadequate for a reliable plan. The time between fixes must be such that it's impossible for the ship to get into danger between fixes. Well offshore, this might mean once every few hours. Closer inshore, the position of the ship is more critical, and fixes must be more frequent. It is essential for the ship's position to be ascertained by cross-checking the results of different fixing methods. Radar and visual fixing both have their advantages and disadvantages. Knowing when to use which as primary or secondary fixing methods is part of a watchkeeper's skill. A thorough voyage plan will indicate which method should be used during different sectors of the voyage. The chart should be marked with a useful number of visual and radar conspicuous objects. These can be derived from the chart itself, the pilot books, or from the mariner's personal experience. It's important to put in only a small number of these points. Don't cover the chart with dozens of radar conspicuous objects that the officer will not have time to use. What is needed is the right number, keeping in mind the closeness to land and the speed of the ship. The timing and method of position fixing is equally important in an electronic voyage plan. The mariner's notes or pilot data file should include the position of both visible and radar visible objects. An electronic voyage plan will have a reliance on satellite navigation systems. GPS and GLONASS at present, but in the future Galileo as well. In confined waters, an alternative system must be used for checking the position, and this can easily be done using the radar maps and radar interlay of the ECDIS. Checks of the position by radar or using leading lights or sectors are of vital importance close inshore, as there's always the risk that GPS will become unavailable for some reason. With raster charts, there may be datum irregularities in comparison with the WGS-84 datum. The ship's speed is another crucial aspect of voyage planning that must not be left to chance, whether the voyage is planned electronically or on paper. It is vital to plan the time of arrival. How does it fit in with the tides, the pilot's services, or the berth availability? The speeds and waypoint ETAs need to be marked on the chart and in the voyage planning notebook. Landfalls also need to be clearly marked. One objective of the voyage plan is to help you and other watchkeepers in using time efficiently. There should be no need to look for information in manuals and books. The notebook can be used to detail instructions that would involve writing on large areas of the chart. The chart and the notebook are both essential elements of the voyage plan. A very powerful method of monitoring the ship's track during a coastal voyage is parallel indexing. This consists of drawing the track of a fixed radar conspicuous point on a relative motion radar display. It works best when the radar is stabilized north up. The line will be parallel to the ship's ground track. The cross-index range of the track is the distance the ship needs to keep off the point. Any cross-track tendency, caused by tidal stream for example, will become apparent by the target moving off the parallel line. This plot enables a constant check of the ship's track to be kept. Fixes still need to be taken even when parallel indexing is taking place. In poor visibility, parallel indexing is invaluable. For watchkeepers to be familiar with this technique, they must practice it in conditions of good visibility. Parallel indexing is equally valuable using electronic chart systems. And the same principle of practicing it in good visibility also applies. The parallel indexing needs to be set up at the planning stage. Here the line appears under the course and is offset by the officer of the watch when the ship is running up to the selected radar visible object. On both paper or screen, the voyage must be planned berth to berth, even for passages where the ship will be navigated by a pilot. The voyage plan must be discussed with the pilot when he comes on board so that everyone on the bridge will be aware of the intended voyage. The entire bridge team will then be able to monitor the ship's progress effectively. Where the ship is headed into an area of restricted navigation, such as inside a harbour, the plan should include an abort point. This is the last moment that the ship can turn back for any reason. As the ship runs up to this point, all arrangements, such as berth and tug availability, must be confirmed with the appropriate authorities.
Sir, second officer speaking, I have the passage plan ready. Could you please come up on the bridge?
Once you're satisfied with the plan, it needs to be checked and approved by the master. The principle of double-checking the plan must be part of the bridge routine.
Okay,
The master may be able to suggest improvements based on his greater experience. This approval of the plan is perhaps the most important part of voyage planning and will generally be required as part of the ship's safety management system.
Can you give me a brief on the voyage plan today?
Yes, sir.
The master's approval of the plan is equally important, whether the plan is on paper or done electronically. Both master and navigating officer need to allow sufficient time for a thorough examination of the plan. As the plan must be made well before starting the voyage, the departure time may change. This may not affect the track, but certainly will affect tides and voyage times. The plan will need to be updated when departure time is known and throughout the voyage as times change. The overall objective of the plan must be to give the watch-keeping officers a plan to follow and sufficient information to enable them to do that easily. The plan will also provide a backup store of facts, so that if things do go wrong, there will be information immediately available to help. Overall, it is essential, whether the plan is done on paper or electronically, that there is a complete berth-to-berth voyage plan for every voyage. The voyage plan should be marked on the chart with supplementary notes in a notebook or as mariner's notes. The chart should have, in addition to the track, useful information including safety margins, clearing bearings, wheel over positions, and tidal streams. The plan must be approved by the master in good time. The plan must be updated as required. Whether it is planned using traditional paper charts or an electronic chart system, a good voyage plan must provide the information the watchkeeper needs. A good voyage plan is the only foundation for a safe and efficient voyage.